Welcome. Thank you for being here. Happy Friday. I'm Bailey Mizell, the director of PAC LA. And we're here today with Star Montana and Seth Curcio for a virtual walkthrough and artist talk for Star Montana's current solo exhibition, currently on view at Shulamit Nazarian. And it's actually closing tomorrow, so we're very fortunate to have both Star and Seth here joining us today for a talk. I just want to give a quick shout out to our programming advisory group for their support and making events like today happen. And also I want to thank our board members and our membership base for your ongoing support. Just a quick run of show. Star will present her artist talk for about 40 to 45 minutes, and featured in that artist talk, we'll do a virtual tour in the gallery space with Seth for Star's current solo exhibition. I'm going to go ahead and read Star's bio very quickly, and then I'll pass it over to Seth and then Star. Star Montana is a photo-based artist who lives and works in Los Angeles. She holds an MFA in art from the University of Southern California, a Bachelor of Fine Arts and Photography from the School of Visual Arts, New York, and an Associate of Arts and Photography from East Los Angeles College. She was born and raised in the Boyle Heights neighborhood of East Los Angeles, which is predominantly Mexican-American and serves as the backdrop to much of her work. Montana has had solo shows at the Main Museum in 2017 and the Vincent Price Art Museum in 2016. I'll add a link to Star's full biography in the chat. And again, we'll have our presentation for the first 40 to 45 minutes. I'll come back at the end to moderate our open Q&A and conversation. And at any time during the presentation, if you have any questions or comments for Star or Seth, please feel free to add them in the chat, in the Q&A, or raise your hand. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Seth.
Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for joining us today on a Friday. I'm very excited to be with Star to discuss this exhibition, it's been amazing to be able to live with for the past 5 weeks, and we're sad to see it close on Saturday. Star is an artist that we've watched closely over the last couple of years. I had a chance to see her exhibition at the Main Museum, which was really captivating and stuck with me. And it was actually our director of sales, Melanie Four, that came to me, I guess, probably last fall or early in the winter, and connected me with Star, and we started to have conversations, which led to this exhibition. And I was just personally struck by how sort of profound and sincere and vulnerable Star is with her practice, and how she's willing to mine her family archives and deal with vernacular images and archival images, as well as inserting her own authored photography into these really just like beautifully compelling installations, and the way that installation has been a crucial part of her practice, and the way in which the works are understood individually and in relationship to other images was just really striking to me, and felt very refreshing and very unique and very sincere. So with that, we approached her to do an exhibition, and we have our first show with her up. And that's all. I just wanted to share a little bit of my own kind of personal feelings about the work. We're really proud to have this show here, and I think Star is just has such a strong voice in photography. So I'm happy to sit alongside you guys and hear her speak about the work as well.
Thank you for that intro, Seth. Yeah. And Star, we'll go ahead and pass it to you. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Bailey. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Sorry, it's always like a little rusty. This is like my first solo speaking gig since COVID. So I don't know, hard, but I always learn how to start speaking again. So let me share my screen, and then we will get to it. Okay, I'm just gonna share my full screen because then it always gets stopped. It stops on me. Oh shit. And I'm used to sharing my screen because I teach kids. So then they won't tell me that my screen has stopped, and then they'll like totally just be like, oh, whatever. So that's why I'm like, they're like, oh, whatever, free period. So So that's why I've learned to just share the whole screen. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll be sharing the exhibition and then a little bit of the earlier work that is part of this exhibition, but not here. And then we'll give you an actual physical tour with me physically here. So yeah, so the name of the series, and I always have to read it because I get tongue-tied, is By the River, I Stood and Stared into the Sun. And so I'll just tell you really briefly about the title. So the title is inspired by two things. It's inspired by and maybe some of you guys are like more like have read the Bible, like maybe in, I don't know, Catholic school, Hebrew school, and anything else. But I haven't. I just know certain things. And then also by this book I read. So it's what is it? By the River Babylon, I sat and wept for the destruction of Zion. I believe that's that part. There's something like that. And then it's by this book that I read when I was in New York that really like shifted my mind, or not shifted, but helped me think through some things, which was By the River Pierda. And Pierda basically means rock, right? By the river or river, something. I know it, but I'm just like, by the River Pierda, I sat and wept. So those two, the book really influenced me, and then that saying really influenced me. And so I've been thinking about this book, or I've been thinking about this body of work for like 10 years. And all my bodies of work, I'll make next to another body of work. And so I had been thinking about waters and migration and diaspora for a long time, and with archival images. And this, I've also been documenting my family with straight photography, and then also documenting my community. So there's, 3 bodies of work, but this one was like really experimental and like revolutionary for me, because coming from technical school, I never thought I would be using archival images and like appropriating them and then using them in installation based. So this is like one side view. And then so this is a little image right here that is next to it. So this is in the work. There's 2 original images. So I use images in the archive. I rephotograph them and then I enlarge them, and then in order to put them in installation. Sometimes in the installation, I will put original pieces. When I put original pieces, and original pieces means the original photo in them, they're very sacred. They're very, very, it means it's basically, it's signifying meaning. Sometimes I want the viewer to know, sometimes I don't. So I'll sometimes, okay, so sometimes like certain images, I'll reuse them again. So not in this show, but in another show, I had the original piece, this piece, like on a 30-foot wall by itself, but this one is connected to right here. So let me see. So, okay. So right here, this is the big giant mural, and it's all by itself. But in the last show, this was a giant mural, and it was an 8-foot by 11-foot mural outside of it, outside of the show, and then I put it by itself. So I put the original by itself on a wall, and then I made it into a mural. This time I made this into a mural, and really, really helpful with Seth. He really pushed me to think about vinyl and thinking about making this one into a vinyl. So going back to the imagery. So right now I have this one as the original piece in the show. And so some installation views of the work. A lot of the times in the work, I'm dealing with the matrilineal, how do you say that word right now? like matriarchal. Sorry. I take medicine for my PTSD, and so sometimes I get tongue tied. And usually there's somebody always to help me. So matriarchal line. But in this show, I wanted to do a little bit with the males in my life and with a little bit of the glimpse. So my brother, he has like the unfortunate, I don't know, he's kind of unfortunate where there's so many women in the family and he's the only boy. And so he always says that he loves women, he reveres them and he fears them because he's just been around so many women. And that I've influenced him so much and I photograph him a lot. And so I wanted this just brief little wall to deal with the men in my life. And the other original picture is his father, who's my stepfather, but also who I consider like my dad. And it's an original picture. So let me show right here. And then it's on juxtaposing walls. So on that, then it'll go to my mother and then to my father. And so the only original quote unquote pieces from the archival things is the mother and the father in the show. Everything else is rephotographed. And so that's just a little bit of the glimpse is, they'll never be for sale. They'll never, nothing like that. Those are, my prized possessions. And the most prized possessions to me are photographs. I don't care about anything else. Everything that matters to me is photographs. And, anybody who knows me knows that. And in the last show, this is another piece that's super important to me. So photo booth pictures are really, really important to me. I just came back from New York, and anybody who's been to like the Whitney, they have a photo booth one, and it's like $10, which is crazy expensive, but I made my boyfriend take one with me. Like I bought so many souvenirs back from my trip for my family, and the only souvenir I bought back was a photo booth strip of me and my boyfriend, like, because they're valuable to me. They're tangible. I could feel it. I know it's there. I know I'm not gonna forget it. And this one of my mom and me is like so sacred, because it's just me and her. It's not, anybody else. And so this one is in the show, but also in the larger version of By the River, there I put the original in there as well. So again, sometimes having those little secrets, and people didn't realize that when they would see the original with a full photo strip and then this one in the show, some people would be like, this looks familiar, I've seen this before. And then I would bring them to the photo strip and I would say, oh, you have seen it before. And this one is a really beautiful and funny picture. I love this one. A lot of people are really interested in it because they love the breaking of it. And a lot of people will always say, oh, this must be your mother and father. And no, it's not. It's a very complicated picture. It's my mother and one of her lovers. And I say lovers because I don't know if it was her boyfriend. It was just one of her lovers. My mother was a very beautiful woman and she had a lot of boyfriends. She had a lot of lovers. Even when I was growing up, like I remember she told me she had to go to prison on a violations charge when she was pregnant with me. And she told me right when she got out of jail, she had a date and he took her to have margaritas. And I was like, wait a minute, mom, you had a date right when you got out of prison when you were 7 months and you had margaritas? What is going on? There's like a lot complicated with that story. Like, why do you have a date? Why is some dude taking you on a date with a 7-month chick? And like, why are you having margaritas? And she was like, I need a margarita. I just got out of prison. So that was my mother, but she was complicated. She was my mother, And so that's why many people always will say my mom and dad, but no. And I think a really interesting thing is I don't actually have a picture of my biological dad. So there's always this search for the pictures. I'm lucky that I have pictures of my mother, that I have pictures of my grandmother, but no pictures of him.
One of the things that I think is really interesting about that picture, which is hard, the one that we were just on, Star, that I think might be hard for people at home is that this particular picture is printed on a mount that's also cut out. So it
Mm-hmm.
really sort of is in between this idea of a photograph as an image and a photograph as an object. And it
Yeah.
has this really beautiful kind of tangible quality. It's enlarged, which makes it feel unlike a traditional sort of photo booth because of scale. But it also it really evokes the sense that there is a missing narrative, that we're maybe a story that we aren't fully able to grasp because it's been ripped and torn off. Um, and for me, I know you were saying like a lot of people misinterpret the photo, but that's the one thing that I always really gravitated towards, and it caught my imagination, is that I feel like looking at this image, you can feel it feels very familiar because it is a familiar act in a photo booth, but also you kind of want to know what the other three pictures were all about and why it got ripped and where it went.
Yeah, totally. I feel like, if you're in a photo booth with somebody, and you like them, I mean, most likely one of those pictures is going to be of people kissing, and I feel like a lot of people have given me interesting answers, like, maybe she ripped them up, maybe he has another one. It's very interesting to hear people's answers of where it is,
Yeah.
and I really like that some people feel like it's very sculptural, and I think it is very sculptural in that way, using imagery as sculptural object, because it is an object, it transformed from just a photo booth to object, and photography can play that role.
And with most of these pictures, to my understanding, they were photographed by one of the women in your family, right? Either yourself, your mom, your grandmother, so that most of the vision of the photographs come from the women in your family.
Yeah, so my grandmother, let's see, like trying to think, like my grandmother, like this one, my grandmother was the author of most of the um, family photographs. She, she tried her best to be an archivist or archivist. She really wanted all of us to have memories, and so she never really came out in any pictures until I started to photograph her, and she just wanted us to remember, for us to be remembered. So she was the archivist until me. Um, and my mother liked us to have professional pictures. So there's a lot of pictures of us taken professionally, just because she loved to be photographed. So we were able to be photographed. Many of them are lost, but there was always the act of being photographed, which I'm sure a lot of people have. But yeah, my grandmother tried her best to, continuously take photographs of everybody. Like this one.
Are they shy now when you pull out the camera and you begin photographing, or is it a part of like so ingrained in the family history that it just feels natural?
I think the only person that really rejects it right now is my nephew, because he's going through his teenage phase or his preteen phase. Um, like he intentionally ruins the picture.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's like funny. Except like recently, me and him did a really great photograph together. And so that was, it gets annoying at times. Like I'm like, oh, I don't like, I'm like, this isn't for art. Come on. Like I just want to photograph us at Universal Studios. Um, and so, but I was making some recent work, and I photographed us in a river, and he like let me get one photograph, and I was like, oh my God, it felt like the $1 million shot, because he didn't act weird. Like he like puts his hair in front of his face. But everybody else is just very natural. They're just like, well, whatever. Like that's just what she does. It's very organic, because I mean, I've been doing it now for 17 years. So I think everyone's just gotten over it now.
And how do they feel when they see themselves on the wall in your installations?
Let's see. Like, trying to think. Like, my brother, we have, I don't know, like, I always say like we're like telepathic twins. Like we both know when we're hurt, or we know when we hurt each other. We know when we're sad. Like this picture, he saw I was looking at the light. He saw that it was hitting the wall, and he saw I needed to do something. And so I asked him if he could just stand there really quickly. This was really for nothing, just for me. Like I just needed to do it. I needed to show like the blinds were broken, and it was just I needed just a moment. Um, and so we just needed to connect for a moment. You know, it wasn't much talking. It was just a connection. You know, so for me and him, he knows when I have to do something, and I really appreciate that with him. You know, I'm glad. Like I always tell him, I'm so grateful you're my brother. It's not like we don't fight. I mean, we definitely fight like siblings, but you know, to have that special bond in that way. You know, I think he gets shy. You know, but he's appreciative that I have this. He's a great writer. I always tell him, and he appreciates the work. You know, my sister-in-law, she understands it as well. I mean, that's Louis's mother. And so, you know, I feel like everybody understands it to extent, you know, they're just like, it's just what you have to do, you know? So, you know, my aunt, my last remaining aunt was able to come see the show and she got very emotional. Um, so I feel like, I mean, you know, everybody knows, you know, my family, what we've all been through. And so, you know, some of them drink, some of them don't talk about it at all. My brother writes, and I deal with it through installation, you know? So, you know, I'm grateful to have that.
Yeah. And I'm curious about like the role of scale and installation because one of the things that really struck me about your graduate thesis show at USC was the way in which maybe I'm jumping ahead. So
No, go ahead.
yeah, is just that it becomes almost an immersive quality, right? Like the emotions of the photographs, the familiarity that comes from archival images gets sort of flooded towards you, or you're presented with these expansive images that you almost feel like you can enter, like your body can physically enter. And I know you have maybe your largest photograph ever that's going to be installed permanently um, over at USC, right? And that will be unveiled a little
Yeah.
bit. It'll be unveiled this fall. And this image is also in the exhibition here at the gallery. So I
Mhm.
thought it might be nice to just hear a little bit about this photograph and then get your thoughts on what it means to have it sort of scaled up and sort of, you know, placed again into the real LA landscape or, you know, into the physical landscape.
Mhm. Yeah, so somebody was asking me about like I was like on a panel recently, and they were asking me like do I feel like I escape when I'm here, or like does it feel like I'm not in LA, or does this feel like a dreamland when I'm in this place, or why am I obsessive in this way here? And I was thinking about that because I was organizing some of my archives recently, and I was thinking about like I've been chasing like these expansive landscapes for a very long time. That some of my first photographs, you know, like with those throwaway cameras, were like getting on top of the roofs in Cedar Chavez and Soto and Boyle Heights, and trying to do this expansive landscape and not knowing how to do it, and continuously trying so many years, because like when you're in the streets, like, in Boyle Heights, it just feels like go, 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 and me and my friends, when we would get onto the rooftops or when we go to City Terrace, it'd feel therapeutic as opposed to just being, in the everydayness. And so when we would come to these places like here or in the cityscapes, um, we would, it would feel like we were just kind of away from everything, but you could see the vastness of it. So you're not really away, but it's just, I don't know, like it's like you transcend, like you can just take a moment and you can breathe. Whereas like when you're just going, it's like you can't breathe. And so I just wanted to capture that, because it's like, I know how it feels not to be able, I know when it feels like everybody's like in your face. And I just needed to capture that. And so when I was submitting the proposal, for the county, it's for a mental health facility. And so there was like, you have to submit 2 proposals. This was going to be one of them, but the other one was going to be possibly people. And I'm more known for portraits. If it's not my family work, I'm more known for portraits, but with mental health, you can't actually have somebody staring at you, which is interesting. So then you have to think about portraits without eyes. So I was thinking about all this different stuff, and they ended up choosing this, but it was a really interesting category to think about, like portraits or non-confrontation or colors and everything that went into that aspect of it. And it went back to this photo, but even this photo had controversy in it. Just very few, but still, like anything can have controversy in it. Even if it's therapeutic to me, it can trigger somebody else. Is very interesting talking about that. And then thinking about scale, like it lives with me right now. It's complete, but it lives with me at the studio, and seeing it to scale is really massive. It's so interesting to think that it's going to live that big on a wall. It's overwhelming to me, that it's going to be mine, but it's the public's, and I have a lot of history at that museum. I mean, at that hospital. I've seen my family be born at that hospital, and I've seen my family die at that hospital, and it's just right here,
Mm.
So it's like life and death there. And that's why we go to these meditative places. It's because you want to escape everything happening here, It's like you can't escape it, but you can just escape it when you go on top of the rooftops, or if you come to the cities like right here, and you can just breathe for a moment because you're not dealing with the everydayness of all of this, And I want people to remember that. At least the youth do that. I mean, every time we're there, there's always like, you know, I don't know, 18 to 25-year-olds just having a moment there, It's like I'm not in my 20s anymore, but I know how it feels to just want a minute.
Mm.
So I understand why they picked this image, because I've been chasing this image for so many years.
Mm. And what will the final scale be?
20 feet by 30 feet.
Yeah, 20 by 30. Wow.
Yeah, it's very big.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be quite a moment, I think, when you are able to see it on the building and kind of realize its permanence and sort of, yeah, I think that's special.
Yeah, it was supposed to be installed now, and they just keep pushing it. So we'll see when it's actually installed.
Mhm. So maybe we
Yeah.
should take a few minutes to also look. I think you have some slides of your graduate thesis show, which
Yeah.
yeah.
So this so as you said, this work was, it's, I don't know, reimagined in a different way. So this is the mural that me and you had talked about. And then, but it's connected to this piece. And this was, most of the work that is in the gallery right now was in this space. And then me and my friends, we built a smaller gallery where once you looked at this, it kind of, it called to you and it said, you know, once you take a moment here, come look in here. And so this is kind of the work that's not here, but you know, it's connected to this work. And so it's a whole room, and it's a room that's wallpapered with an image of my mother. And then it has candid images of like our whole life together, me and my mother's and her family. And then it has framed images kind of highlighting certain moments. And then this is like some of the archival images that I was referencing to that are in the show, that was in the show as well, that then are the originals that people then didn't realize like this could possibly be original. Maybe it's not, maybe it is. And this was the original, you know? And then this is like the final large piece where then they look very alike. My family has very like peculiar genes where we all look alike. But yeah, this was like, you know, the room within the room. And it made some people, a lot of mothers cry. It made a lot of mothers come out of their crying, which I didn't want to do. Um, and yeah, it was a very interesting process because, you know, when we wallpapered it, you know, I had my friends help me build it. I had my dad help me build it. And then they wallpapered it. Everybody thought it was finished, but I knew it wasn't finished. And then I got the candids and I started to put them all over. And some people were very unsure on that. They were like, no, it looks so beautiful like that. But I didn't want it to be alluring in that way. I didn't want it to be like an Instagram room. I wanted it to be a room of contemplation. And I wanted it to break down the facade of just the beauty of a portrait. I wanted you to see what was going on in this person's life, that this person had humanity and this person had lived. Um, and for you to see their life, and maybe there was hard moments and there was joyous moments, and not just this one beautiful portrait of them.
And for you, how, like, seeing the same photograph repeated over and over, how does that feel for you, or kind of um, what were you hoping it would sort of carry forward to the viewer?
Well, I remember when I was in undergrad, so this was 2012. um, we had to do a project where we repeated an image over and over again, like kind of in the style of Warhol. And I remember it had to be something of importance, but not something that you were emotionally attached to. And I didn't understand that. So I picked my mother, and my professor got very upset. And I said, well, why would I invest in something if my work is always emotional? I wanted to pick my mother. So I actually did this image, and it was a little book, and it was just over and over and over again. Um, and I told my professor, one day I'm going to do a wallpaper of this. And they're like, no. So that was like the infancy. I have that little book. I knew what I wanted, and I didn't understand why it was okay for Warhol to do something, like why it was okay to do Marilyn or somebody famous, but why it wasn't okay for me to do somebody that had birthed me, had created me. What was the difference? Um, you know, why is it okay if like, yeah, one artist does it and the other doesn't? You know, I know my references. I'm not saying you don't, but like you're saying I don't, but I just was thinking all that, you know? Um, it just, I couldn't understand that, you know? Um, and so it stood in me that I'm gonna do this one day. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna wallpaper her because she's not gonna be forgotten. And and so I,
That was my other question, is if it ended up for you kind of creating like almost like a devotional space, you know, where um, like the power of that individual continued to echo and be built through the image being seen over and over and over again. Because it's very powerful for sure. And I think it's like very evocative and it works really well. but I know with things being so personal and so close to you, yeah, I was just kind of curious sort of how you felt. And but yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But I honestly, to me, I don't think it's a devotion. I think it's just acknowledging to this person. Like, I think, you could do this with somebody else, and I know that's my mother, but also it's a person, and it's a human life, and here's her whole history. Like, I looked through all the pictures, as many pictures as I could, and like, she doesn't have any pictures when she was a child because she moved so much, but there's as many pictures as I could get of her and her life and existence. And then you see that she gets sick and she gets better and then she gets sick. I didn't want to show any of like when she was dying or anything like that, but then it's like it ends, so the viewer can make their own conclusion. There's different segments, so like there's no reef, there's no in loving memory, there's sentimentalness, but not really. It really does just say this person is not forgotten, you know? And I think that's a lot of the work, is these histories are not forgotten. I think so much of America erases so many histories really quickly. Um, I don't know. As an artist, I'm just not letting it go.
And do you feel that like obviously these narratives, it's your family, it's super personal. Do you feel like what gets revealed is ultimately connected to what was originally documented? Or is the archive so large um, that you can kind of pick and choose and sort of navigate what feels comfortable to share with an audience and what needs to remain really private and just for you?
Yeah, totally. Like, there's things that are private. Like, there's moments that are private, and there's like, when my nephew is like crying, and like, say just had a bad moment, or when I'm crying when I'm a little girl. Like, I show moments when I'm crying, but I'm saying there's sad moments, or I show all sad moments, but I have a private archive that's just for me, um and then there's work that I work through, so there's like the personal, um, and yeah, I think that's healthy as an artist.
For sure. And I'm sure as you look at things and as time goes on, certain things that felt that you couldn't reveal in one context might open up, and you might feel comfortable sharing or not.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even things get private, like with my nephew. Like, he's more private right now, so it's like, okay, like,
Mhm.
he doesn't want to be on Instagram, so he's like, "Oh my God, somebody could kidnap me. Don't photograph me." Right? I'm like, "Oh my God, okay, I won't photograph you right now. Somebody will kidnap you."
Mhm.
So that's just the way he feels right now. So I'm like, "We'll be private right now." So it's like, respecting his wishes. Um, but you know, my brother's super comfortable on it, so yeah, it's like a whole little family story and all that.
Yeah. In a few minutes, we'll have you sort of walk us through the gallery. I'm going to stay upstairs in my office for everyone that's wondering where I am, just above Star. But maybe if you have images of the way in which the rest of the works were presented in this show,
Mhm.
um, since we borrowed heavily from the work and the arrangements of this show for our show, it's kind of nice to see this version since in a sense, it's a bit more expanded.
Hmm. Let's see. I just put this one.
Got it.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fine. I think that's totally fine too.
I have like them. We have it on just I think like the installation view of the first.
Of the first one?
Yeah.
Let me drop it in there.
Yeah.
And I really love this picture too, because I feel like it makes, like it aesthetically makes use of damage that actually happened to the photograph. And again, I think kind of shapes and charges the narrative in the picture.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody about the title and about water and diaspora and how, you know, and how my family has always lived close to water, and being in diaspora and always constantly moving, that it con- it can destroy you, or it can destroy your things, that since we're always shifting, that photos are very precious to you.
I added them in for you.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna, let me redo it, and then but that, yeah, and that this is one example of, like, how water gives life, but it also destroys. And not like, I mean, and yeah, I'm dealing with death and water in my new body of work, but how much I hate water at times. I love water, but like I have like a storage shed, and I went in there to look for like archival images, and I specifically told my dad not to do something. And then I looked and there was like new water damage, and I just started to cry, because I told him not to move something, and like some of my images got water damage, and I just like flipped out. And this was one of them, and like it was just like I was gonna throw this one away like a while ago, and I just let it dry out, and I was just thinking about it in terms of memory, and about how like so hard I'm trying to keep certain memory, like my mother alive, like my aunt passed away like 3 years ago. And like these different dudes, like they're fading away. Like I don't know who that dude next to her is, probably some dude she was dating, but how much this is like memory, like this is what I'm just trying to hold on to, and how like this is just fading away. And after I let it dry out, I was like, oh my god, this is just so much signifying to like how much what my work is dealing with, that I just was like, I'm going to keep this, I'm going to photograph it, I'm not going to change it, and how much poverty and moving and not having like your own space can just it can take everything away. Like I love this image, but I'm still angry. I want it to be perfect. So let me check to see. Oh yes, here, thank you so much. All right, so this is the expanded view. This is the expanded view from the first iteration of it. So this is one, and then this is two. So see, this image was in a whole line, and there's a few more male figures. So see, this is my nephew, this is his dad, this is my cousin, my great grandfather. So there's a whole giant line of people. Seth, is there anything you would like me to talk about or would like to chat about in these
I
lines?
think at this stage, maybe we do a kind of a quick little walkthrough of the gallery space. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Sounds great. And then we'll hop into some questions and Q&A stuff. So
Great.
yeah. As we shift over, everyone that's in attendance today, feel free to add any of your questions or thoughts to the Q&A and chat, and we'll get to those following the tour that they're about to give us in the actual space of the work.
And of course, for anyone that's in LA or nearby, we're open tomorrow. And if you want to come see the show in person, we'd love to see you and walk you through as well.
We have girls are over here setting up at the bottom and start walking over shortly.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Stop shit.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This looks terrible.
No,
My
it doesn't.
goodness.
It's just vertical for us. It's actually the orientation's a little not right.
Sorry.
There you go.
There you go.
Party landscape now? I'm just gonna mute Star's computer.
Thank you everyone for your patience. And then I can turn off this video as well. So we can
Life in COVID.
I can stop your video here, so don't worry.
All right, I just have to hold them because my ears always reject little little things. Okay. Test 1, 2. Okay, yeah, I can hear something. Okay,
Yeah, you sound great.
thank you. Sorry, I just look a little nuts because I can never keep earpods in my ear. They're like shaped funny.
No problem. And Gulzar, thank you for guiding this tour for us with the camera on Star.
So hello everyone. Welcome to my show. So yeah, Seth, is there anything we should talk about right now as we're actually in the space?
Yeah, why don't we take a look at a couple of the pictures that you shot yourself, like the one that you're standing beside.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you approach the photography that's photographed by you and how it operates in the installation itself.
Yeah, totally. So this piece I made in 2014 or 2015, I don't remember right now, but so this was a really important piece for me. So my grandmother and my mother were hoarders. I was just talking to somebody about this. I am not a hoarder, not that like that's anything like to be like, oh, that's cool about, but like I just like because they did that, I'm like totally the opposite. And my grandmother ever like she's passed away now, but ever since I was little, she always had the desk like this. We never ate at the kitchen table. We always like, ate in the middle room, which was always like somebody's bedroom, like on the floor, and so she always like had her bills, like she always had organized chaos and she always had people's like pictures on it, like in her altar. And so for a while she was living at our house, and I had to go get some medicine from her house. I think like insulin. I had to get something from the house, and I had always wanted to photograph the house. So I was like, oh, I asked one of my friends, like, let's go really quick and let me take my camera, because I just wanted like proof, like this house existed, and like memory and trauma, and where a lot of the archive had been. And so, it was sad and therapeutic for me to photograph this because it's like, I don't know, she just never let us touch anything, like all the chaos, like it's hinting, in both installations that maybe this is where you're going to be able to find all these pictures. Maybe this is where all these images are at, because so many of all the images are in here. Like if you're like able to look at it up close, you see there's actual like beautiful pictures in this chaos, and when I would talk to her and she would do her bills every Saturday, she was like, oh, this is like your uncle, or this is this, and then like she would pull out a picture, but you can never touch your stuff, you can never clean it up, and there's like even at the bottom right here, there's like even piles and piles of stuff, and it's not judgment on it, this is how she was able to cope with the world, and so this is like, this is where it's at, this is our kitchen table. So this was one of the most important pictures I needed to take, it's gone now, but it was always there, it was always there. There was always some coupons, there was always something, there was always a picture, there was always medicine, and it was never functional for us, but it was her functionality.
Right.
I love how this picture is sort of placed relatively in the center of the room, and it really does feel like it is the source of all the other images that kind of radiate, from within it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And can you actually talk about that a little further, Star? The actual layout of the space and the serial order of each image, like if that plays into the narrative, or if there was a time frame that you're trying to place?
Yeah, totally. So the space seems linear, but it's actually not linear. It's a lot like memory and storytelling, and that's very important. So when I thought about it, when I was so I wrote my thesis on this show, and it's like at USC. It's like, ugh. Well, I mean, like. I had to write 30 pages for this. So like, and it's funny, I didn't put any of my images in my thesis at all. Like I refused to do that. I just wrote all about it without putting any of them. But um, so, but it's a lot about memory. And so memory is when you're telling a story and then you go back and then you go to the present and then you go to the mid history, right? And then you go back to the present. So that's what the linear is, so like not counting the like, okay, so like you're like, okay, like I could just tell you how the story is starting from here,
Okay.
the mural. So it says like, okay, so like this picture was taken in Las Cruces because like my family's from El Paso, right? So my grandma, she left El Paso in 1945. Well, like my mom's mom, right? So that's my mom's mom right there. And but like my grandma's name is Paula. Like I look like her. Like I used to live with her. But wait, like like so. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I look like her? My mom and her didn't really get along. With like, I'm darker than like you keep going back and forth.
Your own
Like
like
it's
thought.
it's not really linear. It's and that's not the story. But I'm saying like that's how the story is taught. It goes from present to past to maybe the future to it jumps back and forth.
Yeah, and I love how you say that that's actually how memory works.
Mm-hmm.
Your
So
thoughts.
yeah, so that's how I thought a lot about it when I was thinking about the layout, that I didn't want it to do it linear, because if I was to do it linear, it wouldn't work. There'd be log fragments of it that would be gone, because our history is so fragmented that it will never be linear.
Right. I actually have another question for you, Star, and Seth, maybe you can talk on it a little bit too, but you had mentioned the idea of searching for the photograph, particularly you were speaking about your father, but I was wondering about if there's a process in your process of restoration, right? So you talked about the present and the past, but do you ever have to restore any of the found imagery? And is that also a part of your memory making process by using archive?
Sure. You could go to this one right here. So it's really funny because I always talk about this to different people. So I was trained at a technical school. So in order to pass digital 1, so there's digital 1, 2, 3, you have to restore a photo like this, totally. And you can't pass it unless you restore it. So I know how to restore photos, but I choose not to restore photos. So this one is like not restored. There's other ones that are not restored. And so it's very intentional because again, within diaspora and like that one as well, it like, it's damaged, it's what's happened is happened. Like, these cracks and, there's folding and everything like that. Like it's part of the piece, right? Like what Seth was going to, it's like almost sculptural, in that way. And with the other one, I mean, I could easily just have like made that square and then like photoshopped it and then it wouldn't be that, but it's very intentional. So like I don't restore it. I think the only time I ever like edit anything is if like there's like dirt, not like dirt from the photo, but dirt from like the camera, or if it's scanning it, like that's the only time I'll like Photoshop anything out. But that's not really like this damage, you know what I mean? Like that's like the camera or the scanner or however I went about the process.
Yeah, and it's also bringing those memories and those individuals present, right? Because that image wasn't always in that shape, but it is, right? So
Yeah. But yeah, it's really funny because like I had to learn how to do that. And I could do that. I've done that for a few of my friends who've like had to have funerals, you know, because like that's not art, you know, that's for like an in loving memory thing, you know?
Right.
So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the, I know Seth had already touched on this, but the recurring nature of some of your photographs? I know that you had said like it's not more of an obsessive thinking process, but it's more of keeping something present. But there's a detail about that you'd mentioned in the beginning about a piece that was in an exhibition earlier on and then brought back, but enlarged differently or displayed or installed differently. So can you talk a little bit about the recurring change of a piece that continues in different exhibitions that you keep with you?
Yeah, sure. Can we go show this image? So this one was shown in the like larger
The
showing
frame.
of this one. Yeah, so it was shown because it's a photo booth and I like, so not all the photo booth images I have, not like, I'm really fortunate that this one I have all 4 pieces. So I showed the original in all 4 pieces and I showed it in the room with my mom's room. And the name of the piece is called The Earth Cries Louisa. So I showed the original in there and then I showed this piece in the installation. And so those, it was very intentional that I wanted to show the archival piece, the original in the room. And then I wanted to show this piece enlarged with all the maternal line. And so it's different, like I have different intention for both pieces. So if with this one, I don't want to enlarge it. I want to show the original. I want to show, you know, it and this ratio with these dimensions right next to the piece I took with my brother, and I want them next to each other. And then it's like I also want this original and the original of my mother in the show. You know, those are very intentional. Maybe in another show, maybe I'll recreate this one, but I doubt it. Like, I mean, I'll enlarge it, but I don't think so. Like, I feel like I just want this one like this, like, you know, but it's usually with intention, you know, especially in installation,
Mhm.
you
And you
know.
talked about it. You talked about it kind of holding a sacred space, and that's how that functions for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing how an image can change or never change, but continue to be present in all of your installations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And you know, it's for me, like it's hard, but you know, it's necessary to put like sacred objects and in certain shows.
yeah, and hold space for those spaces as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Seth, I actually wanted to bounce back to you for any further comments from the actual like editing process or curatory process in the space. As we close here, it's 4:01, but I want to bounce back to you to talk to you about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, for this particular show, it was a really effortless process where Star had a really strong idea about the image sequence. We knew we wanted to have the images almost have like a lyrical quality as they move up and down through the space. That was really important to her and was something that drew me to the work originally. And while this is a more pared down version than some of her other installations, we knew we wanted to have some type of large scale image that was directly adhered to the wall that could give you the feeling that you could step out from the gallery and into her world. And that was really important to us as well. But yeah, I mean, this particular installation, I felt like just came together really naturally and held the things that meant the most to Star about the ways in which she wants images to be understood in connection to one another. And I was very happy that we were able to kind of utilize some installation techniques to do that.
Yeah.
And for anyone that wants to see more of Star's work, she's currently in an exhibition at the Getty Museum called Now Photo Flux, Unshuttering LA at the Getty. That'll be through October. Also this fall, she'll be in a group show at LACMA. We're very pleased to say, hopefully I can say this at this point, LACMA recently acquired 3 works for their permanent collection by Star. So that's really amazing.
Congratulations, Star.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, keep your eye out for that large-scale permanent public installation at the LA County USC Medical Center. That should hopefully be debuting in the fall of this year. So lots of great things coming up.
Yeah. And Star and Seth, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you, Star, for such an open and thoughtful presentation. And it was wonderful learning so much about your process and also your family history. If there aren't any other comments from you, Star, that you'd like to close out with, or any other questions that our attendees have, we can end here.
No, thank you all for attending. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yeah. And Seth, thank you again. And everyone, thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Have a good Friday.